you been indexing
Today or in life?
in life?
Surprisingly, not that long. I started about 15 years ago.
What made you start?
It was a recommendation from someone who told me that I should meditate. But I'm not the person, or at least wasn't a person at all at that stage with sufficient amount of spiritual maturity. I would say that's probably the best way to describe it, to consider sitting and breathing as an activity.
Yeah.
So it was something extremely bizarre at the beginning. And I understood it much later, much later. And I approached it in a completely wrong way from the beginning. But that was my first contact with what we describe as indexing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm lucky enough to be curious about the things that I'm doing or are going on, even if they're completely going sideways, which happens with my attempts to meditate. But I have read a lot, understood a lot, and paid a lot of attention into the reasons why it works, or why so many people across the world, across multiple cultures, and across millennia have independently discovered similar types of practices and reinvented them multiple times. And the defining moment was listening at some point to a conversation of one of the Nobel Prize winners. And
Mm-hmm.
she said that she spends time meditating every day, so somewhere between an hour and 2 hours every day, non-negotiable. And that made me think, how is it possible for someone with such level of intellectual ability to be wasting or giving away such a significant amount of time? And then I started thinking that maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe it's the other way
Mm-hmm.
around.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the capacity is created by spending that amount of time. It's like I think the stupidity of this became very obvious. It's like, why are you so strong if you waste 2 hours in the gym every day? It's kind of this backwards thinking. And it's exactly what made me make this practice way more regular. It's not daily today. I'm working towards it, but I have been doing this relatively consistently for many years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been life-changing. What about you?
Well, I only know this as indexing because of our work together. But I think I'm similar to you in that I was not a meditative person. Meditation wasn't a regular thing. Like the end of a yoga class is not the same as
Yeah,
meditation. Yeah.
not at all.
Um, sun tanning or sunbathing is not meditation, right? But I kind of understand the value. I understood the value of why this practice will work when you clear the noise. You cannot clear the mind. That's not the point, and that's why I want to talk about this today. But this sit with yourself without any additional input and resist that kind of rat race feel. I think when I would go to or teach my own classes or go to classes, yoga or anything, any stretching, right? Which again is not the same as meditation or indexing. But it might be the only time that someone does have that sort of silence in their day. And that was definitely true for me when I was working years ago. That exhale, that literal exhale that happens when that's the only time you're giving yourself, or besides maybe the shower, where a lot of people say they get good ideas in the shower. Well, there's a little bit less input than you probably have otherwise.
Mm.
So I was kind of getting those little bite-sized moments, just not deliberately and not really intentionally and not part of my daily
Yes.
practice.
Mm.
So the value for me was pretty obvious, but it was this, well, then if I've seen what happens, what kind of ideas I get, what kind of writing I can do, what kind of conversations and sleep even I can get when I do that, even if it's a few minutes, why aren't I doing this all the time? And then we were working on cognitive health. And it was so obvious that that isn't just a thing to prioritize for your long-term brain health. It's just that's a good place to start because
Yeah.
it will enable people to be open or have different types of conversations if you're already building that kind of mental muscle. So I guess the long answer is indexing as a regular practice. I actually have been diligent about this in the last 6 months every day for at least a few minutes. Some days I can go a lot longer than that,
Hmm.
but I think it has in the last 2 years, let's say, of doing this more regularly, but in the last 6 months, almost daily, it does make a difference. It hasn't been that long. We talk to people, they call it different things. It doesn't really matter what you call it.
Yes.
I think it just matters that it's done regularly, consistently, and
Hmm.
with as minimal input, additional input as necessary.
So should we define even for
Yeah.
people what we're talking about? Because I bet that a lot of people have no idea what we're discussing.
Yeah.
There's a very solid science behind this, but we'll try to be descriptive because we're using our own terminology to make it more understandable
Yeah.
rather than too scientifically rigorous. But
Yeah.
broadly speaking, our brains can either process information or input that's coming into our brains, or it can index the information that has been put into the brain.
Yeah.
And the way I like to describe it in a visual way is to helping people imagine a library. A librarian can be bringing, or people can be bringing books and dropping it on the middle of the floor. But then there needs to be a time when the door is closed and someone takes those books and puts them back on places so they're easier to retrieve or make sense of whatever has been gathered, or for the junk or duplicates to be thrown away, or updates to an existing books to replace the old ones.
Yeah.
Now, that process is time consuming and it cannot happen when our brain is processing new information, new input.
Yeah. And when we're talking about input, we're talking about visual, auditory.
Yes.
We're talking about any input from any sense.
Yes.
And it could be new information as well. It could
Any
be,
type of input.
yeah,
Strong smell, strong noise, extreme temperatures, everything that we can register will count
yeah,
as that. But
yeah,
also internal input. So the thinking about the thoughts that we have, or entertaining the emotional states that we might be in an active way. Sometimes we
yeah,
do this without even realizing. All of those things is input.
yeah,
Listening to the news, hearing someone else's comment, having a conversation with someone, that's all input. Scrolling through a social media feed, watching a film on TV, reading a book, it's all input. You've mentioned end of yoga practice where people will be thinking, oh, I need to go to work, get dressed, do this, take the kids, what's on the shopping list. That's not indexing.
no.
It is still information processing if we stick to that analogy. So information is being dumped onto our library floor.
Even if we're not moving. And that's why we call it indexing.
But that practice, we've mentioned this, has been discovered independently across multiple cultures in some shape or form.
Yeah.
And people might know this as contemplation, right? For example, historically, or meditation, or mindfulness, or
Okay.
prayer. Yes,
Yeah.
mental stillness, self-observation, introspection.
But not
Yes.
rumination. And I think
No.
the reason I want to have this conversation today is one, because indexing is one of the hallmarks, let's say, of what we do with clients. That's number one.
Yes.
And that is an early domino that we try to help set up, and we do it ourselves as well, because there's a reason for it later on. The other reason is that indexing, when you are actually shifting the brain from the acquisition mode into that, we're putting the books away on the shelves or we're
Yes.
processing that information that's already
Yes.
there. You mentioned contemplation, but rumination is not the same as indexing. That's spiraling down thoughts or paying attention to emotions, or even the way people might be doing breath work isn't indexing. So
No.
I wanted to clarify what it means for the brain to truly be in that mode.
So should we make the distinction between rumination and indexing? So rumination, which is something that a lot of people find themselves doing when they sit down with themselves for a moment, It's repetitive thought patterns or emotional patterns that constantly circle or process the same thoughts or the same feeling without producing any resolution. Now, to our brain, rumination is internal input. This is not where your default mode network has been activated. This is where a thought came in, and then we actively, although without realizing it, keep repeating it to ourselves or thinking about our thoughts, right? This
Exactly.
kind of a way of maladaptive meta thinking.
Yes. And the same could be true not just about thoughts. You can think about the
Feelings too. Yeah.
sensations and the physical feelings that you have as well.
Yes.
So if someone is sitting and they're aware of the seat that they're sitting on,
Yes.
or they become
Yes.
aware of the heartbeat in this particular way, those are still thoughts.
Yes, they are thoughts on the experiences that we are having. And if they're
Yeah.
repetitive
Yeah.
and we keep entertaining them, that's rumination.
Mhm.
One of the examples of that is also chronic pain,
Mm-hmm.
which we're probably not going to cover this today, but you can already start seeing that the repeated practice of indexing can even help with physical experiences that we have.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the indexing because, again, we use this metaphor or term as it appeared in the 1960s, I think, for the first time in the literature, and then have been reframed or called many different things. But I really like to call it indexing. Your brain decides pretty much everything that happens in your life. And if you leave it untrained, you're not going to get far. It's like if you
Yeah.
never lifted anything or you've never learned how to walk, you will find it extremely difficult to do anything useful in your life as well.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
equivalent. A lot
Yeah.
of people or more people train their bodies than train their minds.
Yes.
Yet the
So
mind has bigger impacts on their entire life than pretty much anything else.
if you are wanting to improve your performance in some way or your cognitive performance in some way, that's kind of the basic starting point.
That's the
But
obvious starting point. Yeah.
yeah, but sleep
Yes.
is not indexing.
No, although sleep is necessary, but that's a completely different topic.
Yeah.
So a little bit neuroscientifically, we're talking about how do we trigger activation of something that we call the default mode network. And this is the part of your brain that only becomes active during unconstrained type of rest period. It's this place where our memory consolidates, where we can start reflecting, we can start imagining our future selves, we can start making meaning and engage in this spontaneous type of thinking. And it doesn't work by default. And that's our librarian in a way. This is the things that will organize and make sense of the experiences that you went through, of the difficulties you might have encountered. It would make sense of the conversations you had with people, what somebody told or didn't tell you, what you expected and didn't happen, and so on and so on. So in a way, this mode can only be activated when there's very little else coming in into your brain. Again, it's not exactly scientifically correct, but the point is to be able to make that distinction. The ideal way to do this or to start learning how to do this is first find a place where there is minimum input. There's no bright lights, there is no noise, or there is no conversations that you can hear, there is no music playing. There is nothing that is unnecessarily distracting. Your clothes are not too tight, it's not too hot or too cold. The sitting is relatively comfortable. And I say sitting, not laying down. That's extremely important as well. Partially to prevent you from falling asleep during that practice, because again, sleeping is not indexing.
Yeah.
But reducing the input that we might get, first from the outside, no strong smells, not immediately after having a strong or heavy meal or bold flavors. I personally like to do this in the morning because I find it the best time to do that. I know a lot of people try to do it or practice it regularly in the evening or throughout the day. My favorite time is morning because it's quiet. There are no kids running around the house. Everyone is still asleep. It's not too bright outside. It's typically not too cold or not too hot. And it is a good time for a distraction-free environment. But it will be different for every person.
I've done indexing with sleep masks, not just to cut out light. Sometimes I will actually put my hands over my eyes if it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it will be too tactile.
Mhm.
or you just make the room a little bit darker. It doesn't need to be
Yes.
pitch black or something. It just needs to be minimal when you close your eyes to be able
Yes,
to
and you don't
get
want to
that.
have flashing lights in your face, right? Or sun
Yeah.
directly shining into it. It's just
Yeah.
minimize anything that can be in any way distracting.
How about sounds? Have you ever done this with noise canceling headphones or anything like that?
Yes, especially when traveling.
Hmm.
If it's on a plane or on a train, sometimes those things help. But again, we're generally looking for minimum amount of input. So every way we can minimize it, the better.
Yeah.
I want to stress this out because it's not about becoming now obsessive about finding yourself in a sensory deprivation chamber. That's not the point. And your default mode network will trigger in other circumstances as well. You can do this reliably, for example, while walking slowly on a relatively flat surface in a relatively repetitive terrain, like in a forest or being outside. Right. If you find a quiet place, distraction-free environment at home, rather than flashing strobe lights and sun in your face and children
Yeah.
running around the house or music playing,
Yeah.
that's often good enough.
Yeah. I guess Studio 54 is not for indexing, I guess, or indexing other things. I usually leave my phone in a different room, even if I
Okay.
do set a timer because I want to be able to keep track. I don't always do that, but I still keep that in a separate room.
Any distraction that we minimize is a great idea.
Hmm.
And we know how difficult it is sometimes for people to spend 5 minutes without reaching for their phone.
Yeah.
There's an entire generation right now that is unable to do this, like is
Yeah.
unable to sit still for 5 minutes without reaching out for a device. That also tells you a lot about the condition or the
Yeah.
state of their minds.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's everyone. I think it
yeah,
impacts people of every age. Yeah.
yeah,
But you're right. It's almost ubiquitous in
yeah.
younger generation. So then we simply say, just observe what's going on, observe your thoughts.
Yes, I think it's important to stress that there is no outcome that you should be looking for during that practice. Again, that would mean that you are creating an input. You're trying to guide or direct the practice towards a certain point. It's exactly opposite of that.
Yeah.
So that's one. If there is anything that you should or would like to consider during that practice is to be curious more than anything else. I think that's absolutely the most important thing to do.
If people compare this to maybe what they've done or tried in meditation or meditation like or guided
Yeah.
meditations, it's not about trying to clear your mind of whatever is going on. It's
Yeah.
that's also a way to instruct it in a way.
Yes.
But you can practice bringing yourself back to your present in some way without clearing the
Yes.
mind because that's not the practice. I think when we say observe thoughts, it's more of like observe when you become aware of you're having thoughts about something and then just bring yourself back to
Yeah.
where you're sitting, that you're here, that kind of thinking.
Yes. So what you're describing right now is commonly called as the mindfulness practice,
Yeah.
which is a relatively less spiritual variant of a prayer or meditative practice, where you consciously direct your attention to the present moment using any object of that attention as you like. Some people use breath, other people use physical objects in their hands or the sensations of sitting or body scans. There are multiple variants or theories or preferences that people might have.
Yeah.
But essentially, what you are doing is that you're trying to become aware of the moment when your brain starts generating thoughts.
Yeah.
And instead of allowing it automatically to ruminate and repeat them, you gently bring it back to a chosen focus point, let's say a breath or an object or sensations associated with sitting. The goal of that practice is not to experience anything particular or change anything particular about that. The goal is awareness in a way, an increasing practice of awareness of those randomly originating thoughts and feelings. At the beginning, when you start doing this regularly, there's nothing happening. You just need to trust the process and understand the importance of doing so. Sometimes it takes a few days, sometimes it takes a few weeks, for some people it takes a few months. But I guarantee you that if you do this practice reliably and repeatedly, profound things will start to change for you. I think it's safe to say, I'm not sure we have ever met a single person for whom that practice hasn't been profoundly impactful or beneficial for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is not a right way, a wrong way to do this. There's different ways you can bring that awareness back. Sometimes simply just watching thoughts, or like you said, being curious about them without directing them. And when people start to do this and build that kind of mental muscle, you can almost watch your thoughts from above in a way. It's like, oh, that's interesting that I've thought that. Where is this leading to now? Now there's another direction. Now I feel something. Now I'm, but you're sort of the spectator in that. That's also one way that you can index and allow processing. Another thing about the putting the library books away, you're not going to be aware of every single library book that's being put away in your brain. There's a lot of processing that's going on underneath this, all of that past experience, your emotional experiences, that's all kind of going on. It's not that during an indexing, you're going to be able to process all of these things in a very conscious way, but it will allow the conditions for that to happen, whether you're aware of it or not. I think the thing is, most people just don't give themselves that time to do it.
Yes.
That's number one. And so then again, there is no right or wrong or should or shouldn't, but everyone that we work with, it's something that we start with for a reason, as I said. But maybe it starts with 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes every day. And then you work up to that. We're not doing the Elizabeth Blackburn level indexing with people, though we can. But the point is to make this, I don't even want to call it a habit, because I don't think that's helpful, to be honest. I think it's indexing is so the obvious domino that starts and allows those different conversations to happen and all of these other downstream effects. But simply sitting and giving yourself time and not immediately reaching for the to-do list or the phone or
Yes.
those sorts of temptations that can happen.
Yes.
Some days are easier than others. That's the important part. And then you can build onto that by doing a different type of awareness practice, by
Yes.
adding on sort of the more cognitive control level of indexing. But that comes
Yes.
after.
So
that's the key.
yes, it absolutely is. And what you described, this practice is like the first step towards non-reactivity, which is the first step towards any type of an emotional development, I think, that differentiates adults from children. And we know indexing broadly covers three big chunks. It's your intellectual capacity, it's your emotional capacity, and it's your spiritual capacity as well. And they're underpinned or intertwined with your physical ability as well, right? So that this ability, physical ability, we would define it as the ability to navigate and move and impact the world around you in a physical way. And we live in a culture right now that is extremely underdeveloped across all those four domains. And some of that is cultural at the moment. I think that where we are most neglected in the Western cultures is the spiritual sense of development. We hardly have any. When we talk spiritual, we're not talking religious. We're talking about people's sense of meaning, values, purpose, some sort of a consciousness or transcendence, something like some sort of experience.
Like service above yourself, right?
What is worth serving that is bigger than I am? And this is almost completely gone from the modern environment for people today. Then we have the physical domain that I don't think we have ever had people as inactive as they are today. And by inactive, we're not talking people looking good on a cover of magazine, because a lot of those people are unfit to physically navigate the world around them as well, right? Those things are not synonymous. I think that that's important to understand. And it has profound health consequences, right? 30% of the cardiovascular deaths, which is the most common types of death in many countries, is related to physical inactivity. Well, this is massive. My children had an assessment recently at school of the basic physical ability levels. And we've received like little sheets and how the children did. And on that sheet, it said that it is estimated that 81% of children do not meet the minimum recommended activity levels.
Oh my gosh.
81. And 81% means they do not move for 30 minutes. They move less than 30 minutes a day. They are unable to make a jump. They're barely able to squat. They are unable to make a push-up. Very, very basic things. And we also see increased numbers of people describing themselves as physically active because they meet the minimum recommended guidelines for movement. Oh, because I did a moderate type of an activity for 150 minutes a week, I think at the moment it is, and they consider themselves to be active. It isn't. It is the bare minimum not to be considered,
Sedentary?
well, not sedentary, unable to function.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and people describe it as being physically fit or being physically active. They're not. So yes, and however, the intellectual we can not discuss at the moment, but the emotional underdevelopment, it's the most profound and most deep. I think we live at the moment at the time of the biggest emotional underdevelopments that humans have experienced, I think, in recorded history.
Yeah.
Despite of what a lot of people believe, your emotional development or your emotional capacity is not how often you cry or how deeply you feel about your neighbor's distress. That's immaturity. Emotional ability or emotional development is how well you can tolerate discomfort, how much you can delay gratification, how you take criticism or feedback, whether you're able to admit to mistakes or errors, how confident or how capable are you of immediately changing your beliefs when new information becomes available, how you remain steady or rooted in your values in uncertainty, how well you tolerate uncertainty, which now people are medicated for it, right? The anxiety is intolerance of uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's how you can resist, tolerate, and respond to fear, anger, right, and frustration or status threats and all these things. And people are today largely completely unable to do any of those things with any type of ability. And indexing is the absolutely first step. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to exercise more or lose weight or become better at work or understand yourself better. Without putting any effort into training that muscle, nothing is going to change for you. There is no amount of social media feeds that you can watch or supplements that you can buy that will make a difference. And if you think that if you're unable to focus attention on a topic for more than 5 minutes because it's being constantly stolen away from you, taking amphetamines is not a solution either. But a lot of people think it is because they feel better. People believe that feeling something is the equivalent of emotional development. It isn't. And unfortunately, this domain underpins everything else.
The brain is responsible for intellectual, spiritual, and emotional development, and then all of those kind of feed into physical health and fitness. And so maybe we can talk here about specific, unexpected, maybe long-term benefits that indexing practice has had on you, on me. Let's talk about the long-term impacts in real life that come from indexing. You already used Elizabeth Blackburn as an example. And not to say that her Nobel Prize came from indexing, but there's something in the practice to keeping your mind clear, your attentional control, your ability to focus and then make decisions, right?
Yes.
That for her might have helped, aided in her professional success, right? Maybe, and probably in many other ways. But like the everyday things that we observe and that we've experienced, what are those things that come from indexing?
Yes. So let's start from the beginning. A lot of the world's of most successful people spend a lot of time every day on that practice.
Yeah.
That's in the same way that many elite athletes spend a lot of time in the gym. Okay, so it's like allows you to clean that mental clutter. So everything that's unresolved, every experience that you had, all the trauma processing, all you need to do is just give yourself into that practice. Clean the clutter. Now, the second one we already touched upon, it gives your brain time to convert emotions which is, again, very primitive chemical way of communicating, into information. What am I exactly feeling? What am I triggered by? What does it indicate? Is there really a danger, right? Is there a loss? Am I expecting, is there a survival threat to myself? It creates a distance between the chemical signals, which we interpret as emotions, and then the behavioral response that we can have to it. Most people react to what they feel. So this conversion of emotion into information rather than the expression of emotion in a reactive way, that's the second most important thing of that practice. The third one, it improves specificity and memory specificity.
Yep.
So when you ruminate, oh, everything in my life is bad, right? This is very different when you start applying precision to it. This particular decision of mine has resulted in this effect for me because I have ignored A and B. That is a very different type of a statement that develops through autobiographical memory, and it is essential for problem solving. You cannot solve for yourself, I'm bad at everything. My day was not great. I'm not good enough. Everything I do is bad, and so on. Those are unsolvable and also not true problems, but we tend to get stuck and looped into them. Indexing allows you to distinguish between what happened, what was observed, what was inferred, what is still unknown, what meaning was assigned to those events, which is, again, it's an essential way of navigating the life. It improves your decision-making, especially when it comes to decision-making for your future self, because that's what the default mode network is directly responsible for. It creates this future self-authoring, because it allows you to do, oh, when X happens again, I know that action Y didn't work, so next time I'm going to try Z. And it will not happen if we don't give enough time into this practice. Otherwise, we will be repeating the same behavior, because by default, repetition of behavior that didn't kill us is considered by the primitive parts of the brain as desirable or familiar.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't serve us. Psychological closures happens during indexing. It gives your mind a permission to stop reopening the same wounds or questions. And you don't need anyone, like this is what I don't understand about all the psychotherapy industry. You don't need anyone else in order to heal yourself from those experiences. All you need is undistracted time with yourself, which is the only thing that you're not given. You don't need to speak to anyone. You don't need to pay anyone for that. You just need to sit down. That's all it takes. It probably won't make you feel good in a moment, but it will reduce your anxiety, your distress symptoms, your depression, mild and moderate.
Yeah.
Improve emotional regulation. It will reduce your reactivity. It will reduce your rumination. And it will reduce repetitive negative thinking. It will increase your self-awareness. It will increase your attention or attentional control. It will increase your ability to notice distractions. It will increase your ability to respond rather than react. It will improve your sleep quality because it will process the things before going to bed. It will increase your tolerance of discomfort. It will allow you to build a greater sense of self-awareness, physical sensations, emotional reactions, and everything related to it. It will allow you to distinguish thoughts from facts. What did you experience?
The first thing I've experienced is oh, I can do that, because it took a lot of practice to even allow myself to do it in the first place. But then after the first few 5-minute periods, it was like, oh yeah, okay, I can do this. It can be a little reward in a way to be able to prove to yourself that you can do that. Just
and when you say I can do this or I can do that, you're referring to the practice itself?
Index itself.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
index
Yes.
itself. So that's where it started, was this, oh, 5 minutes seems like a long time. And now if I can do the 5 minutes there, then I can do 5, 10, I can do much more time. in moments where I really need to maintain my composure. So it was more of like this, okay, I'm capable of clearing the distractions. My sleep definitely improved because it was not the only time at the end of the day when everything's kind of wrapped up and it's kind of a rush to try and move yourself into the wind down time. If it's not a natural wind down time, then all of that processing that's happening during right before you sleep, if you move that somewhere else in the day, even if it's 5 minutes, that is definitely something I experienced fast. Yeah. I think also the clarity for writing, because I never will go into indexing and think, okay, I really need a brilliant idea. I really need to know how to outline this. But I never went into it thinking I need to resolve a specific project or problem, but those seem to work themselves out because of that intentional slowing down, not necessarily in the indexing practice itself, but maybe the next day when you combine indexing and maybe a short walk and then a nice night's sleep, it all goes together and it's okay, this is how I'm going to outline this, and here's how I'm going to write about that. And I need to have this conversation with this other person now. Here's what I'm going to say. Or, oh, I realize now where those emotions are coming from. I can let go of that. So for me, that's the kind of no expectations in the moment, but that's what has been the most noticeable,
Mm-hmm.
immediate, probably directly causative things that came out of indexing.
Mm-hmm.
And how about you?
Oh, okay. So for me, that progress was much slower. I think for the first few months, I don't think I have particularly experienced anything, I would say, immediately useful. I think
Mm-hmm.
I just had this belief because it came from the person I trusted to continue doing this, even if there's nothing really going on that I can observe. So it took me much, much longer. I think with the first month, it was mostly frustrating.
Yeah,
If anything at all, it felt like a total waste of time. And I had days when I said, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't," or "Oh, it's a waste of time. I'll just give up on that." But because I also at the time, as I said, started reading and trying to understand, like, why is it a universally recognized all around the world, this similar types of practices were discovered multiple times and are practiced universally. And why is it that people who are successful do that? So I just decided, okay, it's like I get equally frustrated when I have to exercise, but I understand its importance for physical health or for cardiovascular health, even if I don't particularly enjoy it. So I stuck with this practice for a while. And my first realization was at some point in time that later became like a flood doors kind of opened, was I started seeing that it takes much more time to organize and index and process the information that I have put into my brain. Then, like, it's much easier to dump the books in the middle of the floor than put them back and organize them back onto shelves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if we talk about the gym analogy, it's like the same thing, right? You work out intensely for an hour and then you need to recover for 20 or 30 before you can do that again without injuring yourself.
Yeah.
And my first realization was there is so much shit that goes into my head every day that I would need a week after every day to process an index and
Wow.
make sense of the information that's coming in, right? All the chit chat, all the news, all the stories, all the scrolls, all the reading, all this, all that, all of that. And my first thing was maybe I can cut this so that I can spend less time on that practice.
Yeah.
And the first thing that went off is news. I stopped consuming any news, and within 2 or 3 days, and that was a direct result of that practice. 2 or 3 days later, really, it took 3 days. It was liberating. Like the moment, and I said, okay, so the more noise I cut, the better everything and clearer and safer and more coherent it becomes. So one of the first things I say is cutting noise. And it doesn't matter where it's coming from. where people whispering to your ear, there's opinions of others, stuff you read online or in a paper. It doesn't matter. The less noise, the better. And that just started opening up the whole new world for me where all the other things came from. The impacts of reducing input of low quality information
Mm.
immediately on mood, on the perceived anxiety and things like that was massive. And it was at that moment was almost immediate.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shifted to what I think and how I take opinions of other people, how I read and interpret information. That quality matters. It's like with food. It matters what you eat. And in the same way, it matters what you put into your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, that's a 10-year journey. And I've already like alluded before what the benefits that I've experienced or other people experience. I've never met a person, if they stuck long enough with the process, that didn't immensely benefit from that practice.
I think another thing that I've experienced, and I know at least one other has, is this realization of just how random your thoughts and your physical sensations actually are.
If you let them.
If you let them. Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, you'll be sitting, right? And there's really nothing urgent or immediate that requires your attention. And yet, there will still be those sensations that happen in your chest, in your stomach, and anywhere in your body that if there was something going on or if there was this other input, it would be easy to interpret them as, oh, I'm anxious now, or I'm hungry, or I'm really excited. But like objectively, there's nothing going on to be excited in that way about. But yet the body it's almost like it calibrates itself or something.
Yeah.
Or the way that the body can react to sounds outside and then have the thoughts that kind of pile on top of that. Or if I hear something that I don't find particularly pleasing, then there's a whole cascade of things that happens.
Yes.
And seeing just how automatic that is, but how completely random too, becomes really obvious during indexing, which then, if we're talking about self-awareness, for me, it kind of helps put into perspective, okay, these are the things I probably should pay attention to when I am going about my normal day. And because now I know kind of where the baseline is for all the random shit that's going on behind.
Exactly.
So I find that difficult because there are things that can feel really intense, but there are also this like, really, that's it? Like, that's so random. It's just like physiology and a bunch of biochemistry going on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's been helpful to say, okay, I'm going to have this difficult conversation, or I can recognize this with my manager or whatever the situation is, and know that like this is what the baseline and here's what it is going to be, and I can stay even keeled in that way, for an example. So that's been interesting. Yeah, I think another thing is the ease of indexing can feel on different days is so obvious as well. Some days it's like it's so there's so much going on. It's very difficult to pull it back sometimes, or even I don't know how long it's been since I realized I had a thought. Some days it seems like it might be one or two thoughts and then I can bring it back. And then other times it's like, whoa, we just went down a completely new rabbit hole. Now
yes,
bring it back.
But you say you do it on a daily basis, right? I haven't been aware how long I have these thoughts, right? I've met people who have been constantly thinking about one thing, looped thought from 20 years ago. Oh, she said this. Oh, he did that. Like, it's it's bizarre that people do that. By default, we are not aware of our own thinking.
Yeah.
And unless you start making that practice, you will not know. The realization that you will get at some moment that you are not the thinker of your own thoughts is in itself profound, because it fundamentally changes how you start to see and operate in a world around you. And that ability to dissociate the thoughts, right? The thing that you keep saying, don't believe in everything you think or don't believe everything you feel, comes directly from that. You're not the thinker of your thoughts. And you know that because you can change your thoughts and decisions that you make under the influence of those thoughts by changing the physical state of your body. If you go shopping
Mhm.
when you're hungry or after you've been fed, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So why are those decisions, those thoughts different? You know the same things, you're still the same human, you behave and think completely differently.
Yeah.
And the moment you start understanding that, where your thoughts, reactions, responses, and beliefs are coming from, it becomes it's profoundly liberating, and it changes the way you live your life. The challenge is a lot of those realizations are extremely uncomfortable
Yeah.
because it shows you where you really are in the world. And we are really good at lying to ourselves or wanting things that are not real or wishful thinking. It's childish. But a lot of us never grow up to see the reality. And that simple practice is profound. Attention is another profound thing you've mentioned. If it's left undirected, you don't know where your attention will go next. And there are now entire industries that have been built around monetizing the ability to capture your attention, whether this is through technology or words or certain forms of advertising or political propaganda. There's tons of that. The moment you start seeing that, every time there's a thought or a feeling popping up in your head, and you know that doesn't come from you, you know exactly where it's coming from, and you see that attention from what you need to focus on being taken or directed away from you, the moment you start developing that ability, which again sometimes takes months or it took me years, it has a profound impact on how you're going to live your life.
Sometimes when people index, they fall asleep.
Yeah, it happened to me many times.
What is that? Why is that?
Because you're tired.
Is that why?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty
Okay.
much because you're tired. And
Yeah.
a lot of us are tired without realizing it again as well. That's a
Mm.
separate topic. This is one of the reasons why I index in the morning after waking up,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
before the tiredness accumulates. I recommend when they do this, they sit up and they sit up straight or they try to focus on sitting up tall,
Mhm.
purely to prevent falling asleep. If you fall asleep, nothing happens. You're going to rest. But
Yeah.
it wasn't an indexing practice.
Is indexing cognitively energetic?
Well, any use of your brain is costly, right? It consumes quarter of your entire energy intake. Just the amount of oxygen and energy it consumes is massive comparing to its size.
Mhm.
So I don't think we have it calculated, but in general, the use of your brain is expensive.
Is indexing a neuroplastic process?
Yes,
Do psychedelics change anything about indexing?
they don't change about indexing, but they can speed up the process and make your ability to observe the thoughts and understand where they're coming from, and your ability to see the narrative, to spot the thoughts that you have about thoughts much easier. Most
Okay.
of us are completely unaware of that. And psychedelics, it's a sort of kind of a shortcut, but you can achieve the same or similar benefits with indexing. Actually, I recommend doing both.
Do psychedelics allow the books to be put away faster?
I don't think so, but they allow you to better understand the way your brain works. Putting it in different new types of practices or behaviors becomes easier. And after a correct use of psychedelics in a correct set and setting in a correct way and dose,
Mhm.
it is helpful. And that way, because it gives you this enhanced neuroplastic window where new behaviors are easier, but also the in depth understanding of your own thoughts and where they are arising from is easier. So
Mhm.
one does not replace the other, and they both have significant benefits. Indexing is also something you can do daily. There's no need to use psychedelics daily.
Have you taught your kids about indexing?
Yes.
What was their response?
What's wrong with you? The
Aw.
yeah, or they barely lifted their eyes from the screen, or a waste of time, which is pretty much what I thought when I started.
Hmm. This is something someone just needs to try and start doing and see the benefit for themselves. What would it take? I
I
mean,
think
essentially, we tell people that you'll actually be able to do more if you do nothing, if you do less.
Oh, yes. You just need to know what are the right things to do to amplify your impact. Yes, of course. I think the vast majority of the people can do 90% less and achieve 10 times more.
Yeah.
They just don't know what are the things because they're just distracted by the noise all the time.
Yeah.
There are very few impactful things in life. Actually, indexing is one of those things. That's very much true.
Yeah.
It's not doing less. It's actually a specific targeted practice. And as this practice gets more and more refined, the more time you spend doing it. There's much more to it than we're discussing today. It just becomes more apparent as we practice it more.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Solutions Manual podcast. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment, or share with your favorite brain.